Hi, everybody. We are back to cover some news that happened last night. We were kind of waiting to see when we got the first update on how Bob Iger planned to run Disney. And the first thing he did was basically undo the first big move Bob Chapek did, which was create. We talked about how there was DPEP and then there was DMED, which was everything with a screen, and he controlled all of the money. And the creative, he basically would tell the creative people, okay, here you go, here's the money, you make something, which obviously kind of upset people that used to control their own money. But they, that, and also, from what I understand, also kind of confuse people because no other entertainment company runs like that. You make something for a studio and then they figure out how to monetize it. So uh, basically, he ousted Kareem Daniel, who is sort of Bob Iger's lapdog. I mean, Bob Chapek, wherever Bob Chapek would go, Kareem would kind of follow and kind of start off as an intern for Bob Chapek, and then just kind of kept around. I gotta say, I have not seen anyone crying about this. Everyone says he's not particularly nice, and so I think that was perhaps the easiest bet you could make is that he would not be there very much longer.
I think we made that bet. I think
Yeah.
what happened so far is exactly what we said was probably going to happen.
It doesn't mean we're smart. It's just pretty obvious. And
Yes,
you know,
lest anyone
now
think we are smart. That's not the case.
now he's going back to the people that basically control content. Alan Bergman at the studios, Jimmy Pitaro at ESPN, and Dana Walden at television, and saying, okay, let's devise a new structure. Now,
As well as
obviously,
the CFO, Christine.
oh yes, obviously yes, the hero, the unsung hero, that we were waiting for. So
Let no good opportunity go to waistline.
well, she did cut the fat.
It's true.
But so obviously there's things that DMED does, like run Disney Plus and distribute movies and ad sales that will need to be figured out how that all where that goes, and that for now DMED's in place as it is. The functions of DMED will, at least most of them will still have to happen, but we don't know who they'll report to or how that'll look. But we do know Kareem Daniel is gone, and will not be coming back, presumably.
Off the website already.
Off the website already.
Apparently, as we're reading these different tales of how everything went down, everyone was at the Elton John concert, and apparently Kareem showed up and then did an about face not too long afterwards. So it's got to be an awkward thing. I don't know, which would you be more disappointed about? Like losing your job or not getting to see the Elton John show that you thought you were going to go see?
I do feel bad I feel bad too for the executives who were there who had to kind of react to this while they're there, who did nothing wrong. I mean, it's one thing if you're getting fired, but they thought, oh, Sunday night of Christmas week, we're just going to enjoy. It's been a rough year. Yeah, sorry, Thanksgiving. And we're going to, say goodbye to the Yellow Brick Road and all that stuff. And then, I mean, it's probably a mix of emotions because you're excited that, Bob's coming back, but at the same time, Elton John.
I didn't watch that stream when he played Goodbye Yellow Brick Road. Did he say you can catch this one in the new trailer for Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania?
I don't know that he even knows that you can. He did not seem like I don't want to make it sound like he was delirious, but he didn't seem sort of, focused on the fact that this was a big stream and a big deal. I think he mentioned it in passing once.
And contrary to what the subtitle said, he did not sing Donald Trump during Leave On.
Right. Yeah, that wouldn't have happened under Iger. I'm kidding.
Technically, I think it did.
I guess you're a good point.
You can take effective immediately.
I don't know if we mentioned this, but I've been thinking about it a lot. It's does the people that have to deal with turning off Bob Chapek's access to everything immediately, and then does Bob have to get a new photo for his ID? Does he need does he just move into the office right away? Is he working remote? Normally you don't become CEO in 48 hours. I mean, it
Yeah,
happened.
does the intern go in and clear out, like put everything in bankers boxes and drive it over to Chapek's house?
Right. Like, well, and like, which documents can he even take? We got this whole situation. Sorry, Broken Jeremiah. Jimmy's not coming on today. He's having a little bit of technical issues while he's on vacation, and then he's on vacation.
Vacation? Is this real
Okay.
vacation or is this? Oh, this is real vacation now.
Well, it's not vacation. It's working remote, but working. Let's see here. So today, though, Disney stock dropped 2.8%. Although Deutsche Bank has reiterated the stock is a buy, and as it doesn't see a meaningful change to its direct-to-consumer strategy. I think that's the question people are wondering is, for sort of economic shell game reasons, Disney Plus stuff has been showing up on Hulu stuff showing up on Disney Plus, ESPN Plus stuff showing Disney Plus. And like, for example, Mysterious Benedict Society is debuting on Disney Channel to justify the expense, like to put the expense of the show on Disney Channel to make the streaming numbers look good. But I will say, it's kind of funny. They announced that all cast members, they used to have a choice between a main entrance pass and a Disney bundle subscription. Well, they announced that every cast member is going to be able to get a Disney bundle subscription. But the real reason is that becomes an employee benefit that gets charged their wages, and then they can charge our pool basically whatever they want and increase their subscriber numbers by 80,000. I mean, so it's the shell games. I mean, it's not unique to Bob Chapek, but it's just funny to see what they do to make themselves look good as opposed to just running it well. It's hard to say, DB. This is a good question because we don't know what Bob Iger would have done. I think we don't. Bob Chapek essentially continued executing poorly, but he was executing Bob Iger's strategy, all in on streaming. But Bob Iger probably would have pivoted a lot sooner when you saw the streaming valuations suffer. There's a lot of content on Disney Plus that was released all at once. What's interesting is when you in entertainment accounting for movies and television, not video games, the cost comes in when you release it. So if you delay the release of something, then you can move it to the cost of that to another quarter. So Disney Plus Day, which was in this quarter, they released all sorts of stuff, and they released a lot. And so all that cost went into the same quarter. Essentially, it went all on the same day for most of it. And, so you could say, okay, I mean, obviously not like, you're not going to delay Best in Snow, to February, but, they could have pushed back Pinocchio, saw where the tea leaves were going, where the cost was. Bob Chapek said this was basically what they expected the cost to be. However, he didn't wait for the price increase to kick in. So basically he was saying, okay, we're going to release put price release content level here, and then then raise the price after the fact, which is something Bob Iger would have done. The problem was not that they had a huge earnings miss. It's the problem is that how he explained it. It's the earnings call that really killed him. I mean, there was all sorts of other chat, but when you don't explain it and you don't communicate well, which I think we can all acknowledge, Bob Chapek was not a good communicator. Then that's the problem. You get the if you looked, it wasn't that the stock didn't get hit as bad until Bob Chapek started talking, and then it really dipped in after hours. Whereas usually if Disney had a miss under Iger, it would dip when they had a miss, and then he would start talking, and then it would come back as he would explain what was happening.
And then in hindsight, I guess maybe everyone was so frazzled after that call. That's why they nearly missed the safe harbor disclaimer
Yeah.
reading.
Well, and it sounds like he was, trying to. It sounds like Christy McCarthy, the CFO, was tired of being the one that had to send all the bad news and answer all the questions. And it looks like she is the real sort of Roy Disney in this situation, where just kind of pulled the plug, made this happen. So I know she gets criticized for that waistline comment, but I think hopefully Disney fans are able to move past that and realize that it's her that was able to convince the board that they needed to make a change. Yes, Oogie Boogie did do well, and nobody cares. That's like saying, like, we had a $20 million movie that we made $30 million on. And
Actually, it said that it was not so scary at Disneyland.
That was the report. He actually mentioned both, I think, in the actual call.
In the actual call, but I'm saying they had it wrong in the New York Times.
Yes, well,
I don't know if they've updated it, issued a correction.
I just listened to a Twitter space with CNBC where they spent a lot of time trying to figure out what DMED stood for, and I was just there like screaming in my head. And they didn't get it right. They forgot the last D.
I mean, you could go to dmed.com and it'll tell you right at the top.
DB has a good question. Was Christie brave or just protecting herself? I think, given the Peter Rice situation, I think it was brave, because this is not a board. This is a board that has stood by Bob Chapek. And I don't know, if word got to Bob Chapek that she did this, she would be gone. And there was no reason, I think, at that point to realize that while she might have been, given as the fall guy, I don't know that it would have definitely happened if, Bob didn't feel she was loyal. Bob Chapek felt she was loyal. So, and we don't know any other executives that talked to the board. But we are still looking. What are your thoughts, Kyle, while I check the latest?
I mean, we've kind of covered everything. Like we said, the first thing that we thought was going to happen is pretty much what's rolling out. It's just a matter of what other types of rollbacks or other things happen. It seems like, he didn't say we're going to go back to what it was, because that's an easy thing to do. Hey, well, just look at, revert changes in the document. But it sounds like they're going to try to think up a new structure, hopefully. I'm sure it'll resemble the old way in some aspects, but I hope that they do the same. And I don't expect it to be anytime soon. I think it's probably like pretty low on the totem pole because of how parks are performing, but I really hope that they go back to the drawing board on figuring out the park ticketing and park experience. Like, I understand why the changes that have been made over the past couple of years have been made. What the problem they're attempting to address, I understand, is a problem that should be addressed. But I don't think that the way they've gone about it is great. So I hope that they really revisit that and make things so much less convoluted than they are right now. But again, I'm not expecting that to happen with any
well, I mean, for us, it's complicated because, like, we don't know who to talk to when we have questions. Sometimes, do we talk to the studio? Do we talk to Disney Plus? Do we talk to whatever? I just want to. LA Times just put out a report talking about how this all went down, and
they're like the 10th one.
Yeah, but this one has I think, a little extra color to it, in that, Hollywood Reporter, I believe it was Hollywood Reporter, reported that he was considering another job in a different entertainment company, and that's why Bob Iger.
Well, it wasn't another entertainment company, right? It was an investment company. He was going to lead an investment fund.
Right, but he was going to run their assets, right? So it wasn't just going to be investments. It was going to be, they were going to own entertainment properties.
Okay.
So that's why they moved so quickly. It'd be curious to see if there wasn't that gun, if they would have moved as quickly, and what that would have meant. And I think it's interesting, and probably in his best interest, that we haven't heard from Chapek. But it's it was I think the downfall really started when the pandemic happened, and Bob Iger it became known that Bob Iger was going to offer Chapek help in managing it, and Chapek sort of iced him out. And then I was at the 50th anniversary kickoff, and they had both of them there to sort of kick off Enchantment at the Magic Kingdom the night before the 50th. And you could tell that this was done to show that they are friends and that neither of them really wanted there to be there with each other. And that's when you kind of realize reports are true, because sometimes that these outlets will make up beefs to not make them up, but maybe exacerbate the strength of it. But that's when I realized, okay, there's a real problem here. And but it was it really seems like Chapek's biggest fault is just not listening to the guy who did the job as one of the best CEOs of all time. And why would you turn down his advice? Like, you don't, it doesn't make any sense to me.
Well, I mean, Chapek is the new Walt Disney. I don't know if you knew that. I'm never going to let him live that down, by the way. As long as I'm alive.
Well, and there's always, obviously, people bring up the Black Widow thing and the Florida bill and all that
Rightfully
stuff.
well, maybe the Florida bill, I think, is a little bit more complicated. Like, obviously, he bungled that, but the Scarlett Johansson just feels like the biggest unforced error, and it's something that at the time was just like, that was weird. And then obviously the fact that even though the lawsuit itself was settled quickly, it's that PR move that we all talk about months later.
But I think the issue is not just one of them. It was that it kept happening. Everyone has those beefs, right? Or makes mistakes. It was just, it kept happening one after the other.
Yeah, the communications person lasted like, what, a Scaramucci?
Right. And I think too, we had one of the challenges is just he didn't seem to care that he was making. It's like the one thing criticisms I see about the call was that there was no sort of sense of everything was always rosy. It's like, okay, people don't like me, fine. But I'm listening to the CNBC people, and they're talking about stuff that we're talking about. We're talking about the Disney animation comment about how adults may not want to watch an animated movie, which I don't think is a fair assessment of how he described the situation. I think it's sort of a twisting of words. I mean, it's like taking it out of context as to why Disney wants to own general entertainment. It doesn't mean that you won't watch an animated movie, but you may also want to watch something else. But that became sort of in the CNBC world too, right? And then if it's in the CNBC world, it becomes in the investor world.
Yeah, and I think that was probably attributed to Twitter. I think with the fact that more and more respected news organizations are turning to Twitter trends to craft articles and narratives, that's probably what fed into that. So, all the Diz Twitter things that are kind of, inside jokes, and like, of course, everyone hates Chapek, like that got noticed, and it does, even if it didn't directly influence the Disney board, like you're saying, it influenced some media narratives that the people who are investors picked up on.
Well, and I think that's why this company's a lot harder. I mean, it's funny that Disney sort of famously almost bought Twitter and got out at the essentially very last minute because Bob Iger felt like there was too much negativity on the platform. And look how different those two companies could have been if that happened, and probably not for the best. But
maybe Disney can start making electric cars.
I think it's almost frustrating at the holiday week because things are slowing down than it would have otherwise. But because you really want to know, when you have an internal person, you can just kind of plan it out, lay out your vision, do all those things. Whereas now we're kind of waiting to see what Bob is essentially didn't have a plan. I'm sure he thought about things. I'm sure he says, "Oh, here's what I would have done," but he now he has to execute and didn't really had a weekend basically to do it. So
and and there's also a difference between what you would have done then and what you can do now that the other thing has been done.
Right.
There's proactive and reactive, and you have to navigate those things differently.
But
there are a couple more questions on comments.
Okay, go ahead and pull them up.
They talked a lot about those levers. What levers does Iger have to work with to dig the company out of its financial hole? Which is not necessarily in a hole, literally, but it is,
Yeah, it's not so much that they were in a financial hole. Like, I don't know if they even really need to make a change because Bob Iger has more respect. So the stuff that would have kind of, he's going to get a little bit of a leash, sort of a honeymoon period to make the changes he wants to make, and probably could spend money that Bob Chapek couldn't because, he's the new guy who has the respect that Bob Chapek never really earned or, quite frankly, deserved. But what else you got?
I don't understand Doobie's comment. Do you?
Oh, was Zenyamuka returned? No.
I didn't know if he spelled Zendaya wrong. So.
Yeah. Well, he spelled Zenya wrong, but
okay. Well, we're both right.
So yeah, it's interesting too because there was always talk of Tom Staggs' failure, which I like Tom, but he did fail. Kevin Mayer is just not a good fit. Wall Street likes him, but he would have had a lot of similar problems Chapek had. I mean, even looking at the things he's done since, like buying these production companies that are based off of individuals. Like if you buy them and the individual's not owning it, then what are you owning, right?
Well, I did think that was interesting. I think it was in the New York Times report that apparently a couple months ago, someone not on the Disney board, but that knew the Disney board, did some back channel communications with Staggs and Mayers and to see if they had interest in one of or both of them running Disney, which would have required a acquisition of the company that they have now. But of course, Chapek would have had to sign off on that. So yeah, apparently he wasn't going to sign for delivery of the Trojan horse there. So,
right.
So that fell through. But I thought that was definitely interesting because, we've talked in the past about what would have been had Staggs received that endorsement from the board back then when he was the heir apparent.
Okay, well, I got to run, but thanks for joining me. I don't know if we're going to have anything more for the holiday week in terms of this, but if we do, we'll be back. We will be back. Laughing Place will be back this afternoon at 4 for Barely Necessities, and then we should have Marvel Time tomorrow, as well as on Friday we'll have a sort of a Black Friday extravaganza. Folks at both parks and Becca, our resident merchandise expert, trying to find you the best deals too. So
I don't know if she knows about that yet.
We talked about it, so
okay.
I hope so. Anyway, you can follow us anytime at Laughing Place LPTV, which is laughingplace.com/TV, laughingplace.com/TV. And anytime we go live, you will see us there. And we will also be popping up when we're not live with fun facts, interesting news, and analysis.
Park wait times.
And wait times. And Bob Chapek voice line. Just kidding. So thanks so much, everybody.
Bye.